Sorry, I didn't get breakfast. Nick?
By a show of hands, how many of you have been to a water park?
Okay, that's a good turnout. Now keep them raised if you have been to one that has a type of water slide where the floor drops out from under you.
For those of you who don't know what we're referring to, we mean the slide where you step into a capsule and the operator, without telling you, clicks a button, causing the floor to drop out from under you. You fall into the slide. Here's a photo.
We don't know that guy in the photo. Nick and I have both been on this type of water slide, and we shared a really similar experience.
You meet your friends at the base of the staircase that leads up to the top, and everyone hesitates for a moment, looking at each other, waiting for someone to make the first move up the stairs. And as Deven knows,
once the first man goes, we all follow.
You start to get an uneasy feeling when you're walking up the stairs. A knot forms in your stomach.
And with every step, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Then your legs start to tense up.
And by the final step, you can barely grasp the railing.
But you're up. You walk towards the capsule, taking one last look out at the view from 113 feet up.
Stepping into the capsule, the first thing you noticed is the slight give in the floor.
You can already taste your breakfast coming back up. The operator counts down from 3. 3, 2.
And the operator pushes the button on 2 because everybody grabs at 1.
You're in free fall. It's the most fun you've had in weeks. And for the first time in the past 30 minutes, you're stress-free. You've now conquered something new.
So, what does that mean?
You survived. And now you ask yourself, what was the point of all that stress? The knots, the worry? You hadn't even gotten to the slide, and you were completely psyched out. After having gone down the slide, you loved it.
Nick and I were both uncomfortable going down this slide. Yet, once we had gone down it, we had grown a little as human beings. In order to grow further, we need to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Now think about some of the most uncomfortable situations you've ever been in.
You know, scientists say that a person's most uncomfortable experience is actually being born.
We know all of you take self and community, so we don't need to get into the detail of how uncomfortable or even downright traumatic childbirth can be.
I mean, come on, there's a reason why you come out kicking and screaming.
What we're getting at is that you had to become comfortable being born in order to live and to grow. You had to leave the womb. In many ways, coming to Brooks was like leaving the metaphorical womb.
We came to Brooks and met our freshman year. Well, we didn't actually really meet at Brooks, did we, Nick?
Yeah, well, growing up in Boston only several blocks away from each other, I had the occasional run-in with the then smaller and ever so confident Deven, whatever it was. He looked like this. A little less wide. This young man was a force to be reckoned with on the youth soccer pitch. It's too bad his skills didn't translate to high school.
Yeah, I actually don't remember Nick before Brooks. The first time I remember talking to Nick was the evening of the first day of preseason freshman year. I was not a fan.
Oh, okay, I didn't like you either. At this point, Deven and Jack Murphy had become good friends, and their biggest concern at the time was bombing the library hill on their longboards, and they weren't very good.
That's besides the point. Eventually, we set our differences aside and became good friends.
Because we lived so close to one another outside of Brooks, we ended up spending a fair amount of time together during the summer of our freshman year. With nearly empty schedules and the city of Boston as our sandbox, possibilities were infinite. Or at least they were for Deven. I soon learned that outside of the color-coded, structured world of Brooks, he was restless to fill his free time. The guy cannot sit still.
Nick is very okay sitting still. He was prone to becoming a couch potato after rowing, work, or other commitments that he had. In the beginning, it was a challenge to get him to come outside, although over time it became easier and easier.
That summer, I realized a quality in Deven that I admired greatly: his willingness to explore, experience, and create distractions. While it sounds simple, it was anything but. To explain briefly, Deven pushed me to embrace growth by getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, through making seemingly gutsy activities less so.
Our greatest endeavor to date came in the form of lazy scaffolding on Newbury Street in Boston. Walking past a store under construction, Nick couldn't help but point out how easy it would be to climb the scaffolding.
Before I knew it, Deven had hoisted himself up to the second story and was ascending to the rooftops, hidden under the cover of the surrounding tarp.
Just 5 stories up, the view gave me a rush of adrenaline like no other. Immediately, our pursuit to find the greatest views in Boston became an addiction that carried into our sophomore year. 5-story construction sites became 10, and 10 stories became 43.
Yeah, that was back when we thought not smiling in photos was the right thing to do. The view of Boston from this now completed Fenway apartment complex was so nice that we brought the village. Brandon, Martin, and Jack joined us later in the year. See, that first summer day when Deven began to climb that loose Newbury Street scaffolding, I was terrified, completely and utterly uncomfortable. He challenged me to extend my boundaries of adventure, and while we don't condone our past actions now, experiencing that view with those people on that day is something that I will keep with me.
I never had a friend so willing to explore with me. It was refreshing. Towards the end of our sophomore year, Nick had truly tapped into his natural passion for adventure and embraced getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Therefore, it came as no surprise to me when he told me that he was applying for SYA. I missed him a lot junior year, and I feared his absence would extinguish a flame inside of me. When I moved into Thorne my junior year, I received a much-needed change in scenery. It was this change in scenery that reignited that pioneering flame within me and allowed me to understand why Nick had gone. He needed that change of scenery. He needed to get uncomfortable.
Spain was incredible, but before it could transform into what it did for me, I struggled. Living in another country with a family of strangers who I couldn't even introduce myself to was certainly uncomfortable. They did not speak English, and I did not speak Spanish. The first night I was there, they watched with horrified expressions as I poured myself a cup of olive oil to drink, thinking it was apple juice. I couldn't explain myself. It didn't stop there. I spent the first 2 months saying I was nervous for dinner when I thought I was saying excited. And when I tried to say that I was embarrassed, I told them I was pregnant. I struggled in school and initially failed to find my footing. However, my experience gradually changed to become something that I simply cannot summarize in the allotted time. My grades eventually improved, I gained footing, and my host family and I were able to even move past our less than pleasant interactions. I felt for the first time that I had fully bought into Deven's philosophy. My missteps allowed me to grow, and I was no longer afraid to put myself out there.
To be blunt, hearing about Nick's experiences was frustrating. I knew why he needed to go, but that knowledge evoked jealousy rather than support. After getting over my own insecurities, hearing about Nick's experiences revealed how much room to grow there is in day-to-day life to me.
It's a common and admirable goal to strive to lead an exciting life. What is not common is seeing this desire put into practice, the practice of making yourself vulnerable. It is not something that comes easy, but anyone can do it.
That isn't to say you should go break the law for experience sake, but be mindful of the opportunities available to you, and keep in mind that conquering uncomfortable situations is how we grow as humans, whether that be going down a water slide, moving to a foreign country, or giving a senior speech. Get comfortable being uncomfortable.
I think I can speak for both of us. when I say that it was worth it.
Thank you for your time, Brooks.